Are you thinking about moving to the greater Houston area and don't quite know where to start? I love this place. It is an amazing city. Really is. It's been really great for my family, but there's some things that you have to know about this city before you move here. Hi, my name is Aaron. I'm a realtor in the greater Houston area, and every week I'm helping buyers relocate to and throughout the greater Houston area. And if you want to know anything about where to eat, sleep, live, play, any of that stuff, I'm your guy. So I'm doing videos every week. Feel free to shoot me a like. Also hit the comment section if you have any specific questions. I'm always checking those things and making sure that I get back to everybody as soon as I can. Number's going to be in the description. All my social media is going to be in the description. Any way that you want to get in touch with me if you need any assistance with your move to or throughout the Houston area, I'm your guy. Feel free to shoot me a text or DM. Anything you got to do to get in touch with me, I'd love to help and take care of you. So, like I said, I'm not from here. I was originally born and raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I moved to San Antonio for work, where I was in the construction field for a little while before I moved to Houston for a bigger and better opportunity in construction. And there were some things that I didn't quite know about Houston before I moved here. And I think it's important to know these things specifically before you move here, because like I said, there's a lot of opportunity. There's such an abundant amount of like wealth and opportunity and fields and careers that can be here. But there's things about this city that you just absolutely have to know before you move here. And we'll start a little lighthearted and then we'll get a little bit more serious as we get into the video. So first, starting off, I'm from Baton Rouge. It's hot in Baton Rouge, but it seems like it's another level of heat. Heat here, the temperatures here can get crazy. I joke with my wife all the time. We often walk around the neighborhoods where we live, and we'll go out for a little exercise. And the weather right now is saying, okay, it's like 80 degrees outside. And we'll look at that and we'll be like, man, that's good weather. Let's go for a walk. And then you look down, and we use AccuWeather, and we'll look down and it'll be like 80, real feel 98. And the heat here, the heat and humidity is just muggy. It just feels gross. And so if you're coming from somewhere that doesn't necessarily feel like that, it's hot like 90% of the year, and then it's like really cold, and then it's like really hot, and then it's like really cold. And it's just a weird feel to be in a climate like that. And I'm coming from Baton Rouge, so I'm kind of used to it, but it was just a different kind of hot. Now, it's not that San Antonio hot that I had, because they would have a couple days a year where it would be like 105 plus out there in San Antonio. That just felt like you were getting baked. But out here, it just feels like a little wetter, a little muggier, a little nastier than it did in San Antonio, in my opinion. The next thing that you just got to know about the city of Houston that is kind of a con is that there's no zoning here, right? So what does that mean? In many places, you can't have like a convenience store and then a house and then another business and then a gas station all within a certain realm of each other, right? But in Houston, it is not uncommon to have a situation where you have residential homes, apartments, a pawn shop, a car wash all on the same street. And that can occur in some of Houston's most desirable neighborhoods. In fact, the Heights, that's almost the composition of the Houston Heights, which is one of my favorite parts of town. Just because there's like little bakeries, and then there'll be little restaurants, and then you can go down the street and get you some crawfish, and then right around the corner you can go and talk to a lawyer, and then you can go and pull up and go into this fine dining, and it's just all the juxtaposition of these things that are right next to you. And then you can walk to $1 million house, and then right on the side of that $1 million house you can see what looks to be an abandoned home that no one has lived in 20 years. And that kind of living happens a lot throughout the greater Houston area, just because there's no zoning, or very loose zoning, let's say that. In some of the areas and neighborhoods, like for example, we live up on the north side of Houston, and we're in an area that's kind of transitioning, and I'll get into that in my next point. That's transitioning. We turn right and we're in a $1 million neighborhood. We go left and we're in kind of ratty looking apartments. But that's not uncommon depending on where you are. And even, I'm not from here, like I said, but from people that I know that have been born and raised here, they say that a similar transition happened in the Heights, 15 or so years ago, where the Heights wasn't the Heights that we know now, right? It wasn't this place where you feel comfortable and all that stuff. It was a little bit dodgier. And over time, that neighborhood has transitioned to be what it is, right? So kind of getting to my next con or point that is kind of dodgy that you want to think about when you're moving to Houston is that Houston is probably the biggest place that I've seen such a gentrification, or what they like to call revitalized city, that I've ever lived in. In Baton Rouge, where I'm from, I went to go visit my family a couple weeks ago, and it's a much more defined, this is a good neighborhood, this is a bad neighborhood. Like in Baton Rouge, the line is kind of like Florida Boulevard, if you're familiar with that area, but north of Florida Boulevard, you kind of see the resources and the wealth kind of deplete a little bit, right? It diminishes. We lost our malls, and strip malls are kind of abandoned and a little bit more disheveled, right? In Houston, it's weird because you could have a $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 home on side of an abandoned strip mall here, and that's the kind of thing that can happen, and that's often hard to describe to someone that's not from here, that's moving here, interested in living and buying and owning a home and all that stuff, and just the overall living. It's hard to sometimes explain that there's no zoning, or that things can look a certain way, even though it is considered a great part of town. And being in the real estate space, I can kind of understand it, because even from my street, there are some dodgy, abandoned looking homes right down the street from me, literal walking distance. I can go ring the doorbell of something that looks super like a junkyard, and then I can literally go down the street the opposite way and walk into, a nice park, and there's $2-3 million homes, and the yards are large, and everything looks glorious, and it's just all within a 2-minute walk of each other. You can see the haves and the have-nots of the city, and that gentrification plays a huge part in that. And there's such a boom for it right now, and I can say that me and my wife, we are in this case benefiting from it, because we were in the position to own and buy as we saw a neighborhood kind of transition into to get in at a cheaper price. And since we've been here, the values up here shot up almost $100,000 in the 2 years that we've been here, just because we had the forethought and the savings to do so. The other side of that coin is, for those that maybe lived here their whole life that didn't have that, they eventually are going to get pushed out or forced to rent back at a much higher price. And that's just one of the ugly sides of real estate in Houston. But I'm going to assume that's in all big markets, but in Houston specifically, you're seeing a huge transition to that. Now, there's some people that are doing it right. There's a developer and investor here, Chris Senegal, that's doing some good things in some underutilized or underserviced neighborhoods, where he's bringing great products there, and people that are of black and brown that want to be in something super nice but feel comfortable in that neighborhood, they're doing that, and he's doing a really great job. He also hasn't displaced any of the tenants of the buildings that he's bought. He's renovated all those things to make them look really nice and actually bring values to the city. But by and large, most people aren't doing that. They're running down, grabbing the land that they can get, building what they can build, and basically moving on. And that's one of the uglier sides of development in Houston. Another thing that is, sometimes maybe overlooked or not thought about, but there's so many people here that there is a certain low level danger level that you kind of got to always be, or just kind of thinking about. And like I said, I'm from a dodgier part of Baton Rouge, and so there's certain things that I'm a little bit more comfortable with seeing and being around. But there's always a level of danger here, even in some of the greatest neighborhoods. Like I said, I'm not that far from Houston Heights, which is one of the most desirable neighborhoods in the area. We live just north of them. And if I showed you what was occurring on my Ring app, the thefts, the robberies, the break-ins, the things that happen within a mile of us, and we're 2 miles from the Heights proper, but we get the same notifications on Ring. It's always a break-in. Somebody was in my yard. It's just weird things going on that you wouldn't think would occur, but they're occurring, right? And it doesn't matter that you have $1 million house. It doesn't matter that you live where you live. These sort of things have the potential to happen to you, and you kind of gotta always be on guard, because Houston is such a big city. There's so many people here, but you just kind of have to have a certain level of alertness with you when you're just out and about. Another level of that I wasn't aware of prior to me moving here was that Houston was such a high trafficking place, right? And there's just a certain, like I said, there's a certain level of danger and things that I don't want my wife with my daughter, or there's a certain level of anxiety that I just generally have when they're not with me. And it's to the point in certain places where I'm just like, you can't go outside, you can't be anywhere without me. Like if I have an opportunity to adjust my schedule to go somewhere with them to make sure that I can at least be there and feel some level of safety, I try to. And I didn't know it was such a huge deal until I moved here. Like I said, for construction. Before I got into real estate, I was in construction, and we were doing a renovation for the Bentab hospital. And in the men's bathrooms, there were just like these signs, and on throughout all the floors, I was just like, are you being trafficked? Are you being smuggled? It was just like notice upon notice on like all the floors. And I was just like, what is going on here? I had never witnessed anything like that. And then you just kind of start to hear the stories of this person was abducted, this person is missing, and you just start to see a pattern of that happening a lot here. Or you'll see the reports of like a massage parlor ring where all of these women have been trafficked from somewhere. Or there was a story in Houston, Southwest Houston, a couple weeks ago where there were like 90 to 100 people found in a random home in an area that wasn't even like a bad area. So it's just one of those things that you just have to kind of be aware of, and especially if you're a young lady or just a younger person in general, I would definitely say kind of like keep your wits in about you and just make sure that you are feeling safe and feeling comfortable. And you never want to feel unsafe somewhere where you live, but that level of threat is very present here in Houston. Another thing that I'm from the South, so I'm used to people being a certain way, a certain level of like niceness and just friendliness to you. But road rage here is on another level, and escalating road rage, not just run speed behind you and act like they're going to hit your car kind of road rage. A lot of people like shoot here. Like if after you watch this video, go and Google road rage Houston, and I'm sure you'll see fairly recent articles of person shot at, this person tried to shoot. Like there's just so many incidences here of someone like shooting in a road rage, to the point to where at one point in time, if someone would cut me off just from Baton Rouge or San Antonio, if someone would cut me off, I would get on side of them and look at them. In Houston, that's a no-go. Like I'm not playing that game here, just because people can be crazy here. The next thing is that property taxes are super high. And I've done some research and kind of some comparisons for a friend that was moving out to California, and he was like, yeah, man, for $400,000, I could get this, that, and the other in San Antonio, in California. But if I would have moved to Houston, I could get this. And he was looking at it just basically purely on like price and size, right? And for an example, $400,000 in a certain part of California that he was trying to live, he would get something that was much smaller. But I cautioned him with just assuming that 400 there and that 400 here would be the same for a payment, because in most instances, for somewhere that is a nice area, you're going to pay upwards of 3 or more % in property taxes. So for a $400,000 house, you're paying $1,000 a month just for taxes. That's not principal and interest, that's not insurance, that's literally just taxes. So you're looking at a $3,000 mortgage like right out the gate if you don't put a substantial amount down. And that's something that a lot of people don't think about when they're moving to here. I know I get a lot of calls from people from California just like, yeah, a house like that would cost me X amount of $1 million, but are you going to be that much better off if you got a house that was $600,000 here and a 3 point something tax rate compared to your million and a 1 point tax rate there? I don't know, right? We would have to do the math to see, but you may not get off that much better just on a dollar for dollar. Now you may get more space, you may get more land. We can have that conversation about the analysis, but it's not as quick and dirty as it's just going to be cheaper and a much better life. That's debatable depending on your lifestyle, what kind of house you're trying to get. Is debatable. The next thing that is kind of a knock or a con to me is the fact that flooding is 100% real here, and that might be the biggest deal breaker for me. And I know you can probably get on here and some people will be like, yeah, flooding's not that bad. I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I've been in hurricanes. I've been in severe heavy rains my whole life. Moved to San Antonio, they have heavy rains. They had hurricanes and things that hit them, not as common. Most of the hurricanes actually hit Louisiana compared to Houston. But if Houston has heavy rain, it will flood. Now, is it going to be everywhere? No. But is it enough places to make you nervous about just going and buying any house? 1,000%. I was here, me and my wife moved here in 2015, 2016. And since then, we have witnessed like 3 or 4 500-year flood events. So I think it was the Tax Day, Harvey, and Memorial Day floods. And on all 3 of those occasions, we couldn't leave our house for multiple days. Streets were too flooded. Things that occurred to where we literally could not leave our apartments. Now, we were in all those cases fairly fancy parts of town, so our apartments didn't flood, but not everybody around us was that lucky. Also, there were, and like I said, we lived in nice parts of town on each of those occurrences, so multi-million-dollar homes were flooded. There's a couple areas in Houston, if you're riding around and you can go and see, and they look like mansions, right? And this is like Bel Air and a couple of these other like very ritzy places. But if you ride by and you start to look at these houses that look like they've been elevated several feet, or like they have a garage that has gone up and it's elevated, it's because they've probably flooded multiple times, right? And that has nothing to do with your money. You can't stop and you can't help that where you bought what it was back then when you bought it. Maybe it wasn't a floodplain, but right now it is. And that has happened more and more as we continue to build out and just take over more land within the city of Houston. And it's crazy because it'll literally have like no rhyme or reason to it, it seems. You'll be in neighborhoods that have these retention ponds that are supposed to catch X amount of water, but it just doesn't seem like it's there to really do anything. If rain is coming like it's really supposed to come, and it's coming in hard, you're probably gonna flood or have some level of, maybe not into your house, but on your streets you probably can't drive, and that occurs a lot. I know there's some places in the Spring area, a little bit up north, some areas of Humble that have some flooding. Down south, I know a couple of my friends that their family couldn't like leave their houses, and we got lucky, but we couldn't get to work when that was happening. So flood insurance is almost a must. Any of my clients that buy anything or rent anything, if they can get flood insurance, I almost 1,000% encourage them to get it, just because you'd rather be safe than sorry. I personally have flood insurance on my home, and we don't live in a flood zone. We're nowhere nearby you, but I got flood insurance just because if things happen here quickly, that water just seems to rise and rise and rise way faster than it seems to go down, and you just want to be on the safer side. So I say all that to say there are some things that you have to think about before moving to the Houston area, but I obviously live here because I love it, right? So there's not all bad and there's not all good in any city. If you have any questions about some of the positives as well as some of the negatives that you may have heard in this video about the city of Houston, you want to just kind of pick my brain, feel free to hit the comment section, hit that like button, subscribe. I'm doing videos like this every week, giving you my pros and cons of living in the great city of Houston. If you have any questions at all, feel free to shoot me a text, give me a call, hit up any of my social media. I'm here to help morning, noon, or night. And I'm here to help you find the lifestyle that matches where you want to live. This is Aaron, and I'm signing out. Look forward to hearing from you. Hope you have a great day.